Welcome to How I Lead, a new series of interviews from Thomson Reuters. My name is Steve Assie, and I am head of Canada for Thomson Reuters. In the series, I speak with leaders of the legal profession in Canada. I ask them how they've been successful and what best practices they have to share with other leaders. I'm joined today by Nick Trudell, Chief Executive Officer of Lavery. Lavery is a leading independent law firm in Quebec. It is rated as the #1 firm in Canadian lawyers' top 10 Quebec regional law firms, was the Chamber's Regional Law Firm of the Year in 2018 in Canada, and was named the Quebec Law Firm of the Year in 2020, 2021, and 2022 by Canadian Law Awards. It has been serving domestic and international clients since its founding in 1913. Today, it has over 200 professionals in Montreal, Quebec City, Sherbrooke, and Trois-Rivières. As firm CEO, Quebec is responsible for implementing the firm's strategic vision and strategy while she manages its daily affairs and administrative functions. Anik has over 20 years of experience as a lawyer at a leading Canadian law firm. She has also served in senior management positions in multiple international public relations firms and has sat on numerous boards of cultural, business, and charitable organizations throughout her career. She is currently chair of the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan Montreal. She joined Lavery in 2017. Anik, welcome.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time. So I'd like to start by talking about your career and how you've gotten to where you are now. Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you ultimately made the decision to attend law school at the University of Montreal?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm from Ottawa. I'm born and raised in Ottawa, and I guess that's why I'm from a francophone family. But obviously, had the opportunity to learn English quite young. I have to say, I was not destined to the practice or to law. It was not a family calling. But I've always been very attracted by, for me, justice has always kind of been part of my values since I'm quite young. And I remember a conversation that my parents were both teachers in Ottawa at the time. And I remember a conversation when I was quite young, probably like 6 or 7. And my parents were discussing what a trial lawyer was. And that conversation like kind of stayed stuck with me, I guess, unconsciously. I was quite impressed with with the notion of being a lawyer. And I guess, fast forward years later, I started in university in political science. And at one point in time, I was going out with a boy who his father was a lawyer, and he had decided to see if he could be. He inscribed himself in university in law, and I said, "Oh, you know what? I'll do the same thing." And at the end, he was not taken, and I was kind of taken in university in law. So I kind of stopped being in political science, and I did my law degree, and I kind of loved it, and ended up having a quite a strong score in one of my courses, and the teacher referred me to a partner at the time who was at Steigman Elliott, and I ended up, kind of interviewing, and first thing I know, I was taken to do my stage there, in second year, and I spent 20 years at Steigman. So that was, that's kind of how I ended up in law.
I didn't know that. So you found it through a relationship. I like that. Like that. um, how did you decide what law firm to join as a new associate?
Well, I started as a
Yep.
student at Stikeman, and essentially, kind of did my stage. I was, obviously, uh, my articling. I was there as an articling student, and I had an offer both in litigation and in corporate
Yeah.
to as a lawyer, and I remember, like, it took me about a week to take the decision where I would end up. And I was quite shy at the time, and I kind of figured out that I had to go kind of the hard way, and figured that if I went in litigation, it would be much more complicated and difficult for me given my personality. But it was probably the best way for me to kind of deal with my fear. And I was very fortunate because I had a great mentor who really kind of took me under his wing for years. And so I decided to go in litigation, and I actually practiced for 20 years. So so that's how I started.
Wow. Uh, what was your transition to partner like?
At the time, quite frankly, being a partner was, it was kind of in or out, right?
Mm.
And it was, kind of a sink or swim type of environment. So for me, there was really no, it was kind of an end goal that was clear, very, there was no doubt about the fact that I wanted to become a partner. And I was also fortunate to be kind of sponsored internally. So the transition was kind of natural, but on the other hand, obviously becoming a partner, there's a big difference between, wanting to become a partner and then becoming a partner. It's a whole other ball game. So, it's just the pressure just continues to become more important, but the transition was kind of natural at the time.
So I'm fascinated to talk about your career journey because you then made a major pivot. After realizing that this dream that many people have for a very long time of becoming a partner at one of the leading Canadian law firms out there, you then transitioned to public relations. You started your own firm, and then you were a leader of multiple other public relations organizations. Can you unpack that career transition for us? What led to that? What was it like? I'm just fascinated to hear more.
So I obviously I was practicing many hours, but I had always been quite interested in management. So I always had some functions, at the firm. On the recruitment side, I was also part of the management team for several years. And at one point in time, so kind of it was 20 years after I started practicing, so I was in my early 40s. I realized if I kind of came to a choice. Maybe I was like in my 40th crisis or whatever, but I realized that if I didn't shift at that point, I would kind of stay forever in the practice. And I was really curious to know if if I could evolve in another fashion. I was quite involved at the time, and still am, in charity work, and I was on different boards, and so I was always exposed to other kind of professions and people, and also more like on the creative side. And literally, like after maybe 1 year of really thinking this through, I said, you know what, I need to jump and I need to make a change. I really didn't know at the time what I wanted to do. All I knew is I wanted to, kind of explore uh, other strengths and capabilities that I had. And I was quite fortunate. So yes, I did start a business with one of my friends at the time who was in the marketing area. And very quickly, I was approached by Edelman Public Relations, which is, one of the most, the most important independent PR firm in the world, to do employee engagement, which was something that really spoke to me and had a lot to do with what we had started as a business. And very quickly, I had no idea what public relations was. I was just starting to read about, employee engagement and And I was very fortunate because the leadership at Edelman did a lot. First of all, was very strong on promoting women, which was not necessarily something I had experienced in the past. And there was very strong leaders at Element worldwide, and I literally kind of learned a new trade, learned to lead, learned to manage. And I had a lot of internal sponsors who kind of accompanied me for 7 years. It was the period of time I was there. And I kind of opened my mind to all kinds of new dimensions, which I never thought I could explore as a lawyer. But on the other side, I did a lot of crisis management. So I was always working in parallel with lawyers and often in litigation matters, but on the PR side. And it actually learned me to like I learned how to communicate differently. And it's been a fascinating journey. And I loved every single hour I spent at Edelman. And afterwards I went on the client side, which was something I had never explored, which I would highly recommend to any lawyer practicing, because when you're on the client side, you actually realize what are the expectations, from clients, what it is to evolve in a organizational culture. You learn, obviously what it is to actually focus on an industry. And that was really fascinating. And then obviously I got the famous call from Lavery. So I never thought I would go back to the legal world.
Yeah, well, that's another really fascinating transition. So, what drew you to Lavery, and what pulled you out of your very successful career in public relations?
Um, so well, as I said initially, I've always been attracted to the profession, and I've always had a very high respect for lawyers and the entire profession. I also always felt that it's a very conservative profession. I think that since we all went through COVID, we've been in a situation where we've kind of accelerated progress, I guess, in our profession. But at the time, so that's kind of 6 years ago, I realized that there was not that many female leaders still. And I felt that I had a great opportunity to be able to both lead, but also kind of make a difference, for women in the profession, which obviously are extremely important in number. And also, I was not convinced at first, but when I met the people who were sitting on the board at the time at Lavery, I realized that there was a real appetite for change. Also, it's an independent Quebec law firm, and therefore I felt that I would, really have what it takes to make some changes. And there was a real desire to be forward thinking in the profession. And I thought that all the ingredients were there, and I thought it through, and I said, okay, I think I need to come full circle and come back in another capacity, because actually I stopped practicing in 2006, and I actually uh, really never thought, it never came back to me to think that I would want to practice again. But to lead a law firm is kind of was really interesting because I understand the practice. And on the other hand, I think with the experience I was bringing at the table in terms of management skills and leadership skills, it was kind of a perfect combination, quite frankly. And the culture of the firm was very attractive to me. So I said yes, and I guess that I think that throughout time, I often say to people, you have to kind of find your calling. And I define myself as a change agent, and I think that Lavery gave me the opportunity to be able to continue to live that part of me, which is kind of um, be part of change in the industry.
So I want to dig into Lavery more and talk about the firm and where it's headed. Um, First, I just have one question because this is a series for legal leaders in Canada. And one thing I ask a lot of the people I interview is how do you balance all of your commitments? And you have a lot. You have leading the largest regional firm in Quebec. You serve on boards. You have many
Yeah.
different charitable and volunteer activities that you undertake. How do you balance all of that and still maintain positive mental health?
Well, that's really it's really good question, and it's a question I ask myself almost every day. It's interesting because everybody has its own definition. I think there's not a universal, definition of how you balance your life and equilibrium. Um, I happen to be a very high energy person, and I need to be in constant movement. And part of my balance is to be in that, to have the feeling that I'm moving forward. um, and I realize also that my own rhythm is very different from most of the people. And I think my challenge is not to impose my rhythm to people around me. Uh, so, uh, so being in constant movement is the way that I actually nourish my, I kind of feed my energy, and I love, um, I kind of need my mind to be at high speed as well all the time. So I like to read, I like to meet people, I like to be exposed to, and stimulated by different environments, different type of people. Uh, this being said, I think that I kind of need my creative juices to be at on all the time. But I realize that, and I'm older than I was, 10 years, 15 years ago. So at one point in time, you need to kind of find the right balance. So the first thing is I don't apologize for who I am. Like I am who I am, and with high energy. And I think I have the faculty of compartmentalizing. It's a word I have some problems to say in English, but so I shut off at least once a week, where, and usually it's kind of either the Saturday or the Sunday, where I literally, I don't answer the phone, I'm not on my computer, I'm in nature, I kind of just unplug. And I try to nourish myself in very different ways. And for me, the connection with nature is a definitely a very important way of unplugging. And I think also kind of sleeping is really essential. And there's a lot of studies right now on the importance of sleeping. And I definitely changed my sleeping habits because I used to be a very late bird. So I would sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours a night, and I realized that was not sustainable. So, and I walk a lot, and for me, walking is also a way of, kind of disconnecting from computers and phones and emails and text, and so I guess that's, and I read and I write a lot as well. So there's a lot of special moments in a week where I keep some time for myself, disconnected from the rest of the professional life. I guess that's how I do it.
I love that advice to have some special moments to disconnect, because I think there are a lot of leaders out there and successful lawyers who are just so busy that it's hard to find time. But um, even at your level, you're making time for those special moments and you're engaging with nature and you are having some time to unplug.
Yeah, and maybe the only thing I would add is, well, laughing is very important.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's having fun. And never, kind of never forgetting that having fun is essential to a healthy, happy life. And also, my equilibrium, I find it in my volunteer work as well, because that gives me a sense of purpose. And it connects me to people who actually give me a lot of energy, through mutual commitment. And as I said, I think everybody's different. You have to find what really makes you tick, and you have to take the time to think about it, and then kind of just embrace it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great advice. And speaking of energy, I want to transition to Lavery because Lavery seems to have a lot of energy. So for starters, can you talk to us about where the firm is headed? You're responsible for the strategic vision of the firm. How do you talk about the strategic vision of the firm to your clients?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we went through a pretty intense strategic plan back in 2019. We hired third parties, and we took the entire year to really think of our strategic plan for the next 5 years. And we're actually going back now to revisiting that strategic plan. We clearly have decided to embrace the fact that we are independent. We've resisted through time to become national. So we feel very strongly about our Quebec footprint, and feel very good about that. For us, our strategic orientation is really to partner in the development and growth of key players in the Quebec economy. That's really kind of the basis of who we are. And we like to think that we have the capacity to grow with our clients. And we have a full range of clients, kind of smaller clients to institutional clients. But we make it our mission to really accompany our clients in Quebec. And that's also a way to participate to the Quebec economy. So, kind of that's part of our purpose as a firm. And our focus is really, we focus our energy and our resources really kind of on clients. But we're also in a very rapid changing industry. And I said that, COVID has always obviously accelerated changes, and AI is also obviously accelerating changes. Thomson Reuters is obviously quite aware of that. Um, so one of the key components of who we want to be from a strategic point is to make sure, even though we're smaller than national firms, we want to make sure that we're forward thinking all the time. And I think that speaks loudly about our culture as well. So um, so I guess these are the pillars that the firm stands on.
And how would you describe the culture of the firm?
Uh, well, I think first of all, we've always strive on excellence. I think that's really core. It's been true for more than 100 years now, and we love the practice. I think that's really what kind of that's was sustained through time. Actually, it's interesting because Lavery has the I think we have over 40 former partners who are on the bench, who are judges, namely, obviously, also our Supreme Court Chief Justice. So the love of practice, excellence, but also we're very human. I think Lavery has kept that human side, which sometimes is lost in bigger firms. And even though today we're like a little bit more than 500 in Quebec. We've kept that kind of boutique feeling of, being at Lavery, which is, very interesting because I think that's really distinctive in the market. So we're big, but there's still a feeling that you can connect, and we're not Yarki is not really our thing. So we're quite accessible. So partners are accessible. As a managing partner, I'm also quite very accessible. So I think these are kind of the key ingredients that we were able to sustain through time. And even though our growth happened through some strategic acquisitions through time, we were always capable of finding the right fit. Sometimes when you go through you grow through acquisition, you may end up with a disconnect, cultural disconnect. But I think we always had a knack for who actually fits in well with us. Our last acquisition was a pretty important one back in 2018. So that was a year in when I started my mandate, we did an acquisition of an IP firm. So we integrated 50 professionals. But the cultural fit was really there, and 5 years later, everybody's still there, and so I guess that's these are the magic ingredients of our culture.
That's a phenomenal success story to acquire a firm of 50 lawyers and have all of them still be there 5 years later. I mean, that just is a testament to the culture at Lavery. Um, I I was curious about something on your website. So you specifically say that one of your core values is, quote, "We are entrepreneurs."
Yeah.
That's not easy for a firm that's been around for over 100 years. I'd just like to hear more about that and how the entrepreneurial spirit is expressing itself in the firm.
Yeah. Um, I think honestly, I live it on a daily basis, and I think it's the fact that we're agile. And, I said we don't have too much of a sense of hierarchy. Um, Everybody with a good idea, and the fact that we're independent also. So that combination makes us very agile. 2 days ago, I have a partner who calls me. He's got this, like, hey, I've got a project. Okay. So let's have a discussion with so and so we can, because you can't do this alone. We need to do it in a collaborative level. Perfect. So we did a call yesterday night, 8:30. We were like three partners and myself on the phone, and okay, great, let's do this. So we're agile. Now it doesn't mean that we kind of can bring through everything in every project. I think we fail fast, when it doesn't work, it's okay, but we have that latitude of initiating some projects. Sometimes we have too many projects. I guess that's the in the entrepreneurial spirit. I guess that's the other side of the coin. But I think we're very agile as the culture allows us to to start things and to make them go through or not. And also, uh, I think the principle is that any good idea does not have to emanate from a partner. Like everybody has the capability of being creative and having good ideas. I'll give you an example, very concrete one. Uh, Back in April or March, we had decided to ban the possibility of using ChatGPT and TikTok because there was too much of a downside in the use. And then we kind of took a step back and we said, hey, we want to be forward thinking. We want to be agile, and we want to be, technologically savvy. That doesn't make sense. So our IP group, which includes, we have like IT engineers, we have physicians, we have like people who are really sophisticated in AI as well. They just took the plan, they took the project and say, well, we're going to create an environment, a Lavery environment where we actually can use ChatGPT in a safe way. And it took a few months and it was done. And it was kind of an internal initiative, and we didn't think it through too much. We just put the right structure. We gave the latitude for people to get this thing done, and it's been done. So I think that's a good example of how we are entrepreneurs internally.
Absolutely. It's really incredible. I want to get into that a little bit more in some of my final questions here. I'm curious about the firm's technology strategy. And I mean, the example you just provided shows that Lavery is one of the first firms in Canada to really be experimenting with large language models like ChatGPT. So I'm curious about what potential you see for large language models and generative AI in the legal profession.
Mhm. Well, first of all, on the first segment of your question, so when I came in back in 2017, I realized that we had really invested in technology, and I think we were not you know different from other firms, law firms, or even other professional firms, or even some of the organizations we serve. And we were very conservative in the way we looked at technology. So one of the first things we did was to hire people who were who would really help us to think outside of the box. So we hired literally at a high level people who were not from the legal field, but who were really kind of IT experts. And we really did some planning. And we started our planning. Well, I said we did a whole strategic exercise in 2019, and that kind of corresponded to the time where we really decided to plan out our technology thinking and our IT thinking. Uh, we are very fortunate, as I said, because we did this acquisition of our IP group, in which we have a lot of people who understand the IT space, understand AI. Actually, back in 2018, we created an AI lab with one of our lawyers who's also a physician and who's really extremely knowledgeable and an expert in AI, because we realized right there and then that AI, and that was like 5 years ago, that AI was going to become very important in our field. Um, so we are starting to invest quite importantly, and it's tough because, as I said, when you're a smaller firm, you don't necessarily have the means of a national firm. So you really have to focus on what will make a difference. And I think it has a lot to do with who you partner as well. That is something we're exploring right now.
Final question, Anik. Can you talk a little bit more about your future of work strategy? How do you see lawyers at Lavery spending time, whether in the office or at home? What are your policies around that? I know there are a lot of students right now who want to come to work for Lavery, and I'm sure they're curious about what their lives might be like at the firm in the future.
Yeah. Other great question, which is honestly, I don't think there's a universal solution there. So we decided to take a very flexible attitude with respect to hybrid work and working from home at the outset. So essentially, back in 2021, and we kind of have a tendency to forget COVID because, but we were kind of in and out of the office all the time because of the spikes in the with the virus. So we took the decision that we wanted people back 1 day a week, like fix, and then another day where they could decide within the groups. And we really gave a lot of autonomy of every group to decide when they would come in. And it's good because I think everybody, and we obviously we do a lot of surveys, and we realize that that flexibility is extremely well received from a lot of our folks. On the other hand, it's not a perfect situation because it's when you leave too much autonomy, at one point you kind of lose also, you don't want to lose the cultural spirit and and you know, one of our values is collaboration, and it's great to be able to collaborate virtually, but it's not the same, especially for the younger professionals who are just starting their career. At this point, our lease is coming up to an end in 2026, so we're really thinking this through at this point. Where you know, what's the future of Lavery? Where are we going to? What kind of environment and working environment we want to be in? So it's exciting times for us because it's always very stimulating to think about that. Um, so I think we want to keep that flexibility. There's no coming back. You know, I mean, I don't see our firm moving back to 5 days a week or 4 days a week. I think we're going to stay within you know, two day to 3 day a week. But providing our professionals more of a tailor-made approach. You know, we realize, for instance, for young parents, much easier than before to be able to deal, you know, to deal with the hours and to give that possibility of, you know, kind of organizing your day in function of your family requirements. It's less stressful. Um, and I think we need also to, you know, it's not one person who can take that decision. It's a collective decision. And we had a retreat last weekend, and we had somebody from McKinsey to, you know, give us a speech on the statistics right now throughout the world in terms of working environment and hybrid. And you really have to give yourself a discipline within your groups to be able to talk about it and to find the right pace for your group, but to make sure that you keep that you know, that connection. Because the danger is if you don't have that connection, well, then you don't necessarily have much loyalty to the culture. So it's not an easy subject. And it's not a quick fix, and it's going to take years before we actually understand the impact of this transition that we've been going through for, you know, since 2020.
What I appreciate about that approach is that you're allowing a lot of flexibility for professionals to work the way that makes most sense to them. For me, I'm a parent of two small kids, one who's still a baby,
Yeah.
and you know, flexibility is really valuable. So I love that Lavery is taking that approach and really thinking about how they can best support and enable their professionals.
You know, obviously, you know, we talked about AI, we talked, you know, I think that there's going to be major shifts in uh, the roles within a firm. Uh, and you know, and the roles and functions and who we need as staff. And so we need to be very open-minded at this point and realize that the pace to which the profession is going to change is going to be very fast. And we have to bear that in mind all the time.
Absolutely. I, Anik, this has been just a phenomenal conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to learn more about you and your very fascinating and successful career through law at a leading national law firm into public relations and back into law and leading Quebec's largest regional law firm. And I also learned a lot about the firm's approach to technology. I actually wasn't aware to the extent to which Lavery for years has been leveraging AI to drive efficiencies in the firm. And again, I really do appreciate the thoughtful approach that the firm is taking towards the future of work. So all I can say is it seems like a very exciting time to be at the firm, and it seems like the firm is very well positioned for the next 100 years.
Go.
Thank
Exactly.
you.
We'll celebrate our 200 year. I won't be in. I'll be retired, way retired by then. But you're
No.
right.
That sounds good. All right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Anit.
Thank you very much.